Hey, I'm so glad you came to listen to the Selfish Griever podcast. Today's episode is a special one because it's the first time I'm having a grieving dad on the show. And I connected with him. Really, the universe brought us together. And I'm just so excited that he wanted to share all of the amazing signs that he's gotten because they truly are amazing. I would say even more amazing than the ones I've received. And he had so much to share. I wish that we could have recorded longer because after I stopped recording, we probably still talked for at least another 10 minutes about all the other things we didn't even get a chance to talk about. I definitely hope that he comes back again someday in the future so we can cover all of those things. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoy this episode of what we did get to share today. And I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Colin Hildebrand. I'm a grieving dad. I lost my son to suicide just over 2 years ago.
And what's your son's name?
Holden.
Welcome to the Selfish Griever podcast. I'm the host, Whitney Samarano. This is a podcast for grieving parents looking for spiritual support on their grief journey as they find their purpose after loss. We're a community for grievers discussing all aspects of the grief journey, connecting with your deceased child, and spirituality. I've been a grieving mom since June 2020 when my firstborn twin son, Orion, died in an accident when he was 2 years old. Here on this podcast, you'll hear interviews with grievers on similar paths and experts in spirituality. Welcome to the Selfish Griever community. Well, welcome to the Selfish Griever. Thank you, Colin, for agreeing to be on the podcast. I connected with you through Instagram. I saw a comment that you made on a post from Lisa, the grief coach I interviewed a couple weeks ago. She had a post about signs, and you posted a response that was talking about a sign you had received, actually a prediction through a mediumship appointment. Do you remember the comment that you made? Can you talk a little about that?
I do. I first met with this medium through a father's group, helping fathers heal, which is a great group for dads who are grieving. And Kat Bailey kind of reached out to me through the group. She was doing readings for everyone in the group. And in that reading where I really felt connected to my son, and it kind of changed the way I kind of think about spirituality. She mentioned something about a hat, and my son, he always wore a baseball hat, and we had no idea where it was. But she told me that it was going to turn up on a special day. And fast forward like 4 or 5 months later, on his birthday, we had some of his friends and some family over to celebrate his birthday. And we asked a couple of his friends, "Hey, like, have you seen his Edmonton Oilers hat?" And one of them is like, "Yeah, I have it at home. I'll go get it right now and I'll bring it right over." So I go back to thinking about what she said, and I was just like, "Wow, like, this is just crazy." I'm like, "There's no way this just happened." But it was such an amazing feeling to both have his hat back and to just to see that he was kind of with me and sent this beautiful sign for us.
Was that reading with Kat the first mediumship reading that you'd had?
Yeah. And the
Oh,
things that she mentioned, like about his childhood, about his mental health struggles, some of the stuff that he liked to do, even like things with his personality. It was so accurate, and it just blew my mind.
was mediumship something you had been considering using before Kat reached out to you guys or to you?
Um, we we thought about it. It was never a part of my upbringing whatsoever. I mean, obviously, when you lose a child, you just don't want, you're grasping at straws, right? Like, this can't be it. Like, there has to be something more. And we didn't want our relationship with our son to end. So that's when we kind of started looking at YouTube videos and just doing some research. And I wasn't even expecting Kat to be at this. This was like my first meeting with this fathers group. And obviously, now that I look back, it was meant to be, because it changed the way I thought about death and the afterlife, and I know that my son's always with me. Yeah, it just completely changed my way of thinking.
That's incredible. How crazy that you didn't even expect, Kat to be there. Do you think Holden like orchestrated all of that from his side?
Absolutely, because he came through very strongly. He kind of even interrupted one of the other dads reading. I guess the way she reads is like she can feel things, like physically. Um, so in his case, like he took his own life, like, through asphyxiation. So that's the way he kind of came through. So she had like a very sore throat. She thought she was like something was coming on very quickly, like she was getting sick, like she had a hard time speaking. So that's how he kind of reached out to get his message to me.
Wow. Did you find Helping Fathers Heal through YouTube videos, or how did you find that organization?
I think my wife found it. I think we were just going through, I don't know, kind of any option that we could on how to grieve, on how to find some sort of answers or peace, or we just didn't want to feel alone. So like I know we went to a couple suicide kind of like websites or programs, to do a suicide loss. I mean, we didn't feel alone, but especially after I had that reading, helping parents heal and helping fathers heal was kind of like the way to go for us.
Yeah, that makes sense. Did you feel like it took a while before you found like a grief support group that talked about the spiritual side of things?
Yeah, like I mean, like I said before, it wasn't something that we even considered before, and even us. I mean, it was you hear other people have experiences with signs and stuff, and you're I mean, you're so deep in grief, and you don't really notice at first. Like it takes a while until maybe some of that grief kind of goes away, where you can actually think clearly, because your world is in absolute devastation. But yeah, you start to ask for signs, and and then when you start getting them, it's like, oh, okay. And it seems like it got better and better, and like more things started to be clear, and we'd get signs more frequently. And it was almost as if he knew that's what we needed to move forward.
Yeah, what was the first sign that you got from Holden?
I think a lot of it was just we're looking into the clouds for like a lot of maybe hearts. I know that was one of them. And then again, that like the dimes and the feathers kind of showed up a little bit more frequently. I know there was one time my wife and I were like, "Okay, we got to get out. We got to be with nature." And both in our mind, we're like, "You know what? Like, we both asked for a cat," which is kind of weird, but I mean, we have three of them. And so on our bike ride, there's a big long bike path, and right by one of the signs, there was two stuffed animal, which were both cats, at this big sign of kind of coming into the area. And I was just like, that's weird. Like, it's so far off the path. Like, why would they even be there? So we kind of kept going, and we ended up seeing like a cat tractor. We're like, like maybe, right? Like, we weren't trying to like force it, but it just kind of came. And then right at the near the end of our bike ride, there was a cloud in the sky, and it had like it looked like a cat face with like two little ears, like two pointy ears on the top, and a paw at the bottom, which was, I should have taken a picture of it because it was amazing. I was just like mind blown. And then on our way back, when we circled back around that sign where we saw the two stuffed animals, they were gone.
Wow. That's
So it's just
crazy.
like, yeah, so it's just like they were meant for us to see at that particular moment.
Yeah.
But they're so far off the beaten path. It was like, how did they show up? There's just so many questions, right?
Your logical mind's trying to like make answers and you just can't come up with answers that are sufficient to explain.
Exactly.
And when you see the signs, do you get like a specific type of feeling or something that like you just know without like beyond a doubt that that's a sign from Holden?
I don't feel like anything like physically. I just know in my heart that that's him and he's watching out for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it can be hard to explain to other people the signs. And for me, I think part of it is that like the signs aren't for anybody else, they're for you personally. So it is, this personal feeling, but I was just curious, how you perceive them when you see them. And when you guys started learning about signs, did that kind of coincide with when you had that reading with Kat unexpectedly, or did that come first or after?
I want to say I think it came after, because I think the first time I met Kat, it was I think it was 3 months after he passed. And I know we were just a mess during that time. And we were just kind of figuring things out on what our life was going to be like, and just kind of going through all the the grief, the stages of grief, and figuring things out that way.
And when you started to see the signs, I don't know, did you feel like it was crazy? Like that no one would believe you if you were to talk about them?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, it sounds like you and your wife at least both believe, so you at least had one other person to share and talk to about the signs.
Yeah. And sometimes it's funny because like you try to pick and choose who you could possibly share with, because I mean you want to share your experiences with other people. So I mean I get a lot of my signs from Holden like through music, right? Like a playlist or a song on the radio, which was like some of his favorites. So I remember one time I was talking to a guy at work who just lost his dad, and that morning I actually had a vivid dream from Holden, right? So I was very emotional. So I kind of wanted to see if he believed, and so I asked him if he ever had like dream visits from his dad or signs, and like right away he was just like, no, no, I no, didn't really believe it. So I was kind of telling him how I get songs from Holden, right? So like for instance, "Basket Case" by Green Day, that was one of his favorites. He actually like he played guitar, so he played that song on stage in a band. So I knew that was when I hear it, it's him. So I'm telling him about some of my experiences, and I walk back into my office to sit down, and that song comes out on the radio.
Wow. I mean, that's clearly Holden saying like, "Good job, dad," to tell that guy about that.
Exactly. And I ran back out there. I'm like, guess what song's out on the radio? And I'm like, I can't make this stuff up, right? Like yeah, it's just amazing.
Yeah,
And
that's exactly the feeling. Like this astonishment and also like you couldn't make it up. You couldn't think of these things on your own if you wanted to just, I don't know, make all of it up. Like the way they happen is just so incredible.
yeah, I totally agree.
Do you think it's, I don't know, I guess I'm interested in your perspective as a grieving dad because I think that from my perspective, there's a lot more moms like publicly grieving. And I'm just curious how you feel as a grieving dad who's looking for that support in general for your grief, but also, for in the spiritual side of things. Like, is that harder, or do you feel like there aren't a lot of grieving dads out there talking about this stuff?
No, and that's true. I mean, through helping fathers heal, I mean, it's a small group. It's not even close to what the women's group is like. Um, but we show up every Wednesday and we talk. Just And it's almost like a brotherhood, and you just don't feel alone. Since I have found that group, I have found two other dads locally where I am in Winnipeg, Canada, and we usually get together at least once every couple months, just go out for dinner, a couple drinks, talk about our kids, talk about some of the signs that we get, just stuff like that, just to kind of stay connected. So I mean, that's a good group to be a part of, where you just don't feel alone, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I'm so grateful that you agreed to be on the podcast because once I started really looking around and thinking about it, because it wasn't something I had to think about before, because like I said, grieving moms are not everywhere, but they're relatively easy to find. I realized there aren't, a whole lot of dads that you hear talking about this stuff. And even the post that I saw your comment on was under an Instagram page that's called Grief Support for Moms.
I
And it
know.
just felt like it underlined for me, wow, he's like, you're having to go look in places that aren't targeting you. And it's great. I think that you still show up there. Somebody made the comment to me that like for every grieving mom, there's a grieving dad, right? Like every child has two parents.
Yeah.
And it's gotta be a whole nother layer, I guess, for you that I don't have to experience. And it just, I don't know, it like, I'm just in awe, I guess, of dads who maybe have to feel like they're going it alone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I definitely don't feel alone. I mean, sometimes when I'm deep in grief, we all do. But I mean, being a part of a mom's group or a dad's group, to me, I mean, if the content is there and it's good and I can relate, and if I can help other moms with my experiences, then great. If I can help other dads, I'm like, that's, I don't know, I feel like that's kind of like not my purpose, but it's like I want to I want to let the other dads out there know that it's okay to grieve. It's okay to talk about your kids. You don't have to bottle everything up and just like keep it with you. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to be angry. There's other dads out there that would love to support you. So I mean, I try to I try to connect with whomever I can. So I mean, I try to share my experiences, and if that's something that they agree with or not, I mean, at least I'm letting them know that that's an option, right? I'm just trying to be the best supportive person I can, and I know that I get confirmation from Holden that I am on the right path. Because just before Christmas, um, we did have another reading with Kat Bailey, just as a Christmas gift to us to be able to hear from Holden. And the first thing he said was, "Dad, I'm so proud of you." And I'm just like, I just like burst into tears. I'm just like, I'm trying. I'm trying so hard, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, I can understand that entirely. It's I think I feel very similar that like I'm here because I'm supposed to be doing this podcast and stuff, but it's hard. And I definitely get guidance from Orion, from my son. And you have, I mean, we talked a little bit before about the signs you've received and a little bit, I think, about your dream visitations. And you have some really powerful experiences that, in my opinion, way beyond some of the stuff I've experienced, even personally. Can you share maybe what's your favorite or most powerful dream visitation that you've had?
Yeah. So I mean, the last couple years of Holden's life, he struggled with mental health, anxiety, depression, ADHD. Um, Kind of got into like the wrong crowd, like not going to school, like getting into the drug scene, stuff like that. His mental health made him very um, aggressive. So like lots of damage to the house, just very like violent outbursts at times. So my second visit that I got from him, he kind of came to me early in the morning. I remember hitting snooze, and I was even thinking the night before, I'm like, man, like I just want to dream visit so bad, but I'm like, I don't sleep very well. I only sleep like maybe 4 or 5 hours a night. So I'm not gonna get into that dream state. And then I remember I hit snooze, and all of a sudden, like, he came to me. And I was laying down, and he kind of came to me as uh, like a 12-year-old kid, and he's like, "Hey, Dad, can I talk to you?" I'm like, "Or can I lay with you?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Absolutely." So he came and laid with me in bed, and he was just face to face, kind of like what we did like throughout his childhood. I'd always be reading him stories and stuff in bed, and he's like, "You don't the videos that you've seen, like, that wasn't me." I'm like, "I know, buddy." I'm like, "I know it wasn't you." And at the time, it was like I got to hug him right after I said that, and I woke up in tears, and I knew exactly what it was. That when I woke up, he must have just gone through his life review, and he probably saw a lot of the things that he wasn't proud of. And I knew deep down that wasn't him, because I knew he was a sweet boy, always cared about others, but I knew he did some things that he wasn't proud of. And I know deep down that wasn't him, and he just reconfirmed that for me, just to let me know that he was okay and I should be okay. And I know he doesn't suffer from mental health right now, where he is, so he's guiding me, and I do feel that.
Wow. I mean, that had to have been just so amazing. I've only had one dream visitation and it was really brief. And it was basically just that I like saw my son's face kind of, and he looked like the same, but different at the same time and had kind of this peace about him. And I just knew he was okay, but there were no words. And I remember when he like first appeared to me, it startled me out of a sleep because it was so shocking. And then I remember consciously thinking like, "No, wait, come back," and closing my eyes again to like not lose it. And I didn't. He was still there, and then it finished. So, I mean, does it when you have your dream visitations, do they feel different to you than like a regular dream?
Yeah, usually when I get to see him and I get to hug him or even talk to him, it's like I wake up in tears, because it's just powerful. Like, it's not full on crying, but it's just like I kind of wake myself up by kind of like, I guess, kind of whimpering in my sleep, I guess. But yeah, those are so amazing. There was one that I had, my first ever dream visit that I had from him. It was almost like I saw him on a two-sided mirror, and he was exactly how he looked at 16 before he passed. And he was in like a burgundy suit, and he looked healthy, and I saw like the smile on his face, and it just put me into tears just to see him happy and smiling, and he looked so healthy. And we had a mediumship reading a couple months after that, and I asked at the time, I'm like, "Hey, like, how many dream visits has he had?" And at that point, I had three dream visits from him, and the medium said that I had two, and she said, and the other time that you saw him, it was on the astral plane. I wasn't supposed to see him, and that was the one where he was wearing that burgundy suit, and I saw him in the mirror, kind of thing, which was
Man.
it just blew my mind.
Yeah. Do you think that there's something like special that you do that makes it possible for you to get those dream visitations?
I don't know. I don't think so, because I haven't had one in a while. But like within like in the first year, I was so grateful that I probably had close to like a dozen. But he keeps me guessing, because I mean, I haven't, even though I haven't had dream visits, I've had other experiences with him, which aren't like typical, like, not the dimes or the feathers or the hearts. But honestly, a couple months ago, I was just driving to work in my car, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw a feather fall from the roof of my car down to the floor. And I was like, what did I just see? Like I had to like I leaned over to make sure that what I saw was real, but there's a feather that landed on the floor. And it's not like I keep birds or chickens or anything in my car. Like this was just like in the middle of my drive out of the corner of my eye. And I was just like, I'm like, wow, he really. So when I do talk to him in the mornings on my morning drive, it's like he is there and he is with me. He is listening.
Yeah, those things are, I mean, they're all affirmations that they are with you and they are listening. And I was just curious about, your, I guess, process, so to speak, because I know there are so many parents out there that would love to have all those kinds of experiences. And not everybody gets those. They don't all get the same, definitely, but they don't even all get dream visits or, like I said, I've only had one and it wasn't like long in length or anything like that. So, and I don't have
Yeah.
the answer. I don't know why some people do and some people don't.
I don't know. I wish I had an answer too. Otherwise I'd be getting visits every night.
Yeah.
But I mean, I do consider myself fortunate. Um, and again, like our last reading that we had with him, he did say, he's like, Dad, I send you lots of signs. And like, I know you do. I know you do, son. I appreciate them all. Believe me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like from the way you were describing a little bit about what you asked the medium that you kind of, I don't want to say you're a skeptic, but you're definitely like using them to validate some of the signs and stuff that you're getting. So it's not all just about like showing up in blind faith.
I mean, yeah, you want to, right? You kind of want to get a little bit of validation. So I mean, when you get that, it blows your mind. And when I did really start to open my eyes to the signs and to spirituality and stuff, it really kind of opened the door for so much more to come in. And it just kind of made me understand, I think, myself a little bit more, and the connection that I have with Holden, and just kind of the way I see the world so much differently. It's just not so like black and white anymore, like
Hmm.
the way I was brought up. So it's just
Yeah. Has this whole experience with like your spirituality been hard for you or caused any separation between family or maybe friends you had that don't get it now?
maybe a little. I mean, I know my parents don't think that way, so like I know I can't talk to them about this kind of stuff because they didn't believe it. But I mean, other friends that I have and maybe acquaintances that I've kind of met, um, if I do if I do decide to share some of my experiences, I kind of you can kind of tell if they believe it or not. Because if they're like, "Oh yeah," and then they start sharing, then that's great, right? Like you form a connection, and it's like I love listening to other people's experiences as well. But you kind of know, like as soon as you mention something, like 10 seconds in, if you should kind of keep going or just don't bother.
Have you been shocked sometimes by the people who responded positively that you didn't expect were going to?
Yes. I don't have any examples per se, but I mean, I think a lot of people have these experiences, they just don't talk about them. And now that spirituality is kind of, I don't want to say becoming a little bit more mainstream, I do feel that people are talking about it a lot more. So like the more I've shared with other people, I get quite a bit of like positive feedback with some of their experiences and stuff. So yeah, definitely a lot more sharing than not with some of the new people that I've met, that have come across my path in life.
I agree. I mean, that's one of the main reasons for the podcast is that when I finally got brave enough to start talking to some people about the signs that I would see that were so real for me, but I was so worried that
Hmm.
everyone else was going to invalidate them. And then they themselves would say, and even people who didn't necessarily experience traumatic grief or the loss of a child, I mean, it would be people who lost a grandmother and now gets butterflies, or lost their mom and now gets hummingbirds.
Hmm.
And it would shock me because I didn't ever hear anybody talking about this. And I realized I wasn't so alone.
Yeah, and even with my dreams, like I've had a dream visit from my grandmother, um, and she passed away when I was a teenager, and I had a dream visit from her, kind of like in between my other dreams of Holden, and I was just like, and again, like I woke up and I was kind of like in tears because I got to hug her and like I got to tell her I loved her, and like it was wonderful, and I always try to ask more of my relatives to come visit me in my dreams. Nothing yet, but hopefully soon.
I think that that's one of the biggest things for the difference between people who receive and people who don't is being open to it and then asking for it and then trusting that it's going to come. And it's maybe not going to come tomorrow, but knowing like that is going to happen makes a big difference. And I guess in some weird way kind of clears the way for them to be able to connect with you.
Yeah, and I mean, when we're in that dream state, that's when I kind of see it as like, yes, we're recharging our batteries for the day, but that's where our soul can kind of leave the body and go out and adventure, and then like come back before we wake up. That's how I see it anyway.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So for any, I guess even griever in general, who's maybe considering contacting a medium or having a mediumship appointment, what, I guess, words of advice would you have for them?
Um, I mean, obviously, do your research. I mean, through helping parents heal. I mean, like for me, I mean, Cat Bailey was the first one, and it was so accurate, and it was such an amazing experience. I would definitely. I mean, I have booked many appointments with her already. So I mean, she's a really good one. There's so many good ones out there. I mean, you want to get someone that's verified, who's done it for a while, and just yeah, I would say do your research. I mean, obviously, like ask around too. I mean, I can put a list on my Instagram as well, or even on this podcast with a few that I've used that have been really good. Um,
Yeah, anyone you
and
have to
that's
recommend, I can include in the show notes their contact info. How many mediums total have you seen?
I've seen three.
And how many mediumship appointments have you had between those three mediums?
I've probably had about I want to say 10 maybe. Because usually we try to get one like around Christmas time as a gift to us, and then usually like we'll try to get one around his Holden's angelversary, and then like around his birthday.
And out of those 10, have there been any of them that you've ever regretted having done?
No, no, I don't think so. They've all been really good, really positive. But I mean, every medium reads differently. So you just need to, if you once you do your research and if you like how someone reads and how they relay the information, it's all in personal preference as well.
Yeah. And it's an investment as well, right? I mean, my experience, the good mediums, the best mediums, I guess if that's how you want to describe it, are not cheap.
No, some of them can be really expensive. Like I want to say up to like around $400 a session, like for an hour. I know there's a few, like I know like Cat Bailey, she's fairly reasonable. I think it's around like 160, 180 for an hour session. Some of them are around 125. But I mean, yeah, like I mean, you just kind of go with. I would say, you know, do your research and find someone that you really like the way they read and how they relay the information, and then you go from there. I mean, I definitely do want to try. Like, there's a few mediums out there that are a little bit more pricey. I definitely do want to try to see what what kind of reading I get, but I hear they're really, really good, so it's definitely worth the money. yeah, I've had nothing but great experiences, and even with the dads that I meet in the group, they've had great experiences as well.
Yeah, and between 10 appointments, do you feel like you've heard something different at each one, or there's sometimes overlap?
There's usually always something different at each one. Like there's been a few times where like he might ask like, "Oh, have you been thinking about like selling the house or moving or kind of getting a fresh start that way?" He'll bring like Holden's brought up like different memories from when he used to play hockey, skateboarding, even like the one time that we took them skiing. He brought that up last time, and it was so spot on because he did not like it at all, but his brother did, and yeah, so you get a lot of that. The first couple readings, you kind of go through with maybe how they transitioned, because I know the second one that we had with Kat, he pretty much walked us through the entire evening of what happened without actually saying how he did it. But everything else was like what we thought happened was spot on. So yeah, for him to kind of clear that up, kind of put us a little bit at ease, I guess. Just knowing that what we thought happened and what he said happened, um, it really meant a lot coming from him and hearing his side. It's a question on like every parent's mind, right? Like especially like with a child who passed through suicide. You always have there's always so many questions. But for Holden, it seemed like it was an accident or an act of passion, and um, they said it happened very quickly, like almost like a light switch. So yeah, just some stuff to process, that's for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like the sessions are just as important to Holden as they are to you.
I think so. I definitely think so. Like it's so great to hear from him. Like you can just sense like his personality in the readings as well.
That sounds really special. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I can't believe time has just flown by as we've been talking about all this stuff. Is there anything else that you feel like you want to share before we go?
Um, I mean, for all the dads out there, you're not alone. You don't have to fight this battle of grief alone. It's okay to feel. It's okay to share. So I mean, you can find me if you need someone to reach out to. Find Helping Fathers Heal. Um, they're a great group. It's like again, it's like a brotherhood. You can say what's on your mind and not feel judged. Um, it's a great group of guys. So yeah, you're not alone. Definitely come find us. We're here.
Awesome. Yeah, I will make sure and include a link in the show notes to your contact info for Instagram or whatever you are comfortable with sharing. And also, I absolutely am 100% an advocate for helping parents heal and their father groups, which are helping fathers heal. And there'll be a link to that in the show notes as well. Well, thank you so much, Colin. And I am so grateful to Holden for bringing us together so that you could get this opportunity to share on the podcast. And I'm grateful for you agreeing to do it as well.
Absolutely. I'm grateful that you reached out to me. I definitely feel it. It was the universe kind of bringing us together to share our stories with the rest of the world. So thank you so much, Whitney.
Thank you for listening to the Selfish Griever podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode today with Colin. And if you know a grieving dad who would benefit from hearing his story, please share it to them. It's just something I feel so strongly about all the grieving dads who maybe feel alone and don't have to. So even if it's hard, maybe just be a little brave and share it with them. And tell them something like, I thought of you when I saw this. And leave it at that. If they want to listen, great. And if not, maybe someday. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you all next week.